So one question I want you to go ahead and ask yourself to go ahead and start this podcast is this. This is one of the most profound questions that with observing people's behaviors and observing the problems that they have, right? I always want to ask, why do people have similar problems or go through less than desirable experiences, right? Why is there similarities between these two things, right? So if you observe people in their life, right? A lot of people have generally the same type of problems, right? um or the same type of obstacles. Let's just say that same type of problems, same types of obstacles, right? Why do they choose to go ahead and go with that less than desirable experience, right? And like I mentioned, right, there are and have always been common problems that most people have that keep them in a state essentially of suffering, or of being average, or of keeping them broke, or keeping them dumb, or keeping them suppressed, or keeping them depressed, right? You can observe all of these things. If you're even a decent observer of life, of people's behaviors and things like that, you're able to see the subtleties within a person's life, where if they're one less than desirable way, you're obviously going to see another person who's living a more desirable way, according to you, of course, or according to the situation, right? According to the problem, right? What is the difference between their behaviors, their actions, their character, their difference of experiences? Why is one person having an experience versus the other person having another experience, right? The question I want you to go ahead and ask yourself is this. You must always ask why, and how could it be properly avoided, right? So like I had mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and break it down for those few things that I mentioned. I'm going to go ahead and give you a problem that I see commonly happen, right? Let's just say, okay, keep them broke, right? So a lot of people understand that you need to be probably good with money. You need to be financially literate within this life, right? They understand it very, very thoroughly, right? But yet you still see them in a state of being broke. The question is, why are you choosing decisions? Why are you not educating yourself on the things that you must be educated on? Why are you not instilling discipline in yourself? If you can see people have that same problem, or better yet, you can see people have a solution to the problem that you have. Why are you going about that situation the way that you're going about? Or for example, right? They make a problem, or they have a problem that keeps them dumb, right? You understand that the solution to you being, let's just say dumb. We'll just say that, right? Is to acquire knowledge. We all know these things, but yet there's certain people who act as if they do not know the solution to the problem that they have. It's almost as if they haven't observed anybody that had a similar problem to them before they encountered that problem, right? And like I said, it really is just as simple as that. Or like I said, let's keep them depressed, right? So some people will say, depression is something that you can catch. Other people will say depression is nothing more than an emotional state that comes and goes, like most, right? But with that being said, observe the differences between a person who is depressed, a person who has the problem, it's a problem, who has the problem of depression, and the person who doesn't, right? The type of people that do not, and the type of people that do. What are the differences within their character? What is the difference between their behaviors, their habits, their circumstances that they put themselves within, right? What is the difference between those, right? You must begin to ask why. Begin to ask yourself, how can they truly be properly avoided? Because most people just, they don't ask that question at all. In me observing certain people in my life that have certain problems, let's just say I wanted something that was different than what they had. I must take a different route than the ones they chose, right? If I see that the route that they chose is a faulty route, I have to, and with good reason, you would think to take the opposite road. But yet you still see people have the similar problems, and who go through that same experience to learn that same lesson that they could have learned from just being an observer. They don't acquire the wisdom from the experiences of others. And that is probably one of the dumbest things that I've ever seen anybody do, right? You see somebody going through a problem. You see somebody in the midst of a struggle, right? You know the solution or the answer to their problem. Yet you do not acquire the wisdom that would suggest that your situation would be different if you were put in that same similar situation. And like I said, it really is just like that. You do not have to go through things and experience less than desirable things if you've already learned the lesson by acquiring the wisdom just by observing somebody's behavior, right? Like I said, I see it time and time again where somebody will go, there's a few common problems that literally can destroy somebody's life, or like I said, not even necessarily destroy it, but let's just say make it less than desirable, a less than desirable state. So I'll give you a few of them. Right? Being in debt, having financial problems, right? That's definitely a huge problem that you see a lot of people have for sure, right? Or let's just say this is a common one that is a blessing and is a curse at the same time. Let's just say having kids early, right? That is another what people could be perceived as a problem or an obstacle that you don't necessarily need to have, but yet you see a lot of people having it. And more importantly, you see them, the same people who say, you know what, I don't want to be like that, are the same ones that end up being like that to an extent, right? They recognize the struggle that would partake within this person's life if they were to adopt, or if they were to adopt that same type of problem. Let's just we're call it a problem, right? So like let's just say you have kids at a young age, you're essentially going to be put up with more problems than you could even think of, right? And of course, like I said, it's a blessing. Of course, you have a kid, and that's a great thing. But at the same time, you're obviously going to have the struggle that you're going to go through. Harsh struggles that aren't necessary to have, but are obviously necessary in the situation that that person would be in, right? And one thing I want to mention, I think this is one of the most profound things that I thought about. Most suffering that exists is somewhat self-inflicted. We all suffer to an extent, but some people suffer more than others. And you must ask yourself why. Why does this person suffer more? Why did they create a situation, or why did they allow themselves to fall into a situation that is going to allow them to suffer more than they need to? That is one of the most goofiest things that I've ever seen. And I see it on a day-to-day basis where certain people would choose certain things. They will unconsciously choose a life path, and instead of recognizing that life path is going to have certain problems, they just go with it. They just go along with it, right? And like I said, it is truly self-inflicted, right? Everybody's going to go through hard things within their life, right? We all know this, right? But depending on the path that you choose, that is going to dictate what type of problems that you go ahead and have. And like I said, most people just they don't reconstruct it. They're not self-aware enough to observe these things. So I want you to begin to be self-aware so you can void yourself from problems that you don't necessarily need to have. You can acquire experience. You can acquire wisdom from those who have went through similar things. And if, like I said, if they're in the position that you want to be in, obviously go ahead and recreate the same path that they went on. But if they're more often than not in a less than desirable spot than you want to be in, you need to act as if that was your experience. You need to act as if you've learned something from a problem that somebody had by just being an observer, right? Being an observer goes a long way. It goes along a long, long way. Let me tell you for example, right? I'll give you an example that I had within my life. One example that I have that is a great example, right? Is the woman that I chose, right? The woman that I chose to be my partner, right? What you must understand is there's a lot of problems that come with relationships, right? Obviously, no matter what relationship you're in, no matter how good your partner is, right? You're always going to encounter certain problems, right? But I just find it funny how people will recognize and really want to avoid themselves from having certain problems, yet they're still choosing people who would properly give them the same type of issues that they're trying to avoid. And I think that's absolutely ridiculous, right? So me for example, right? I've had enough dating experience to recognize that there's a common problems that most people have um with people that they date. So for example, maybe that they will cheat on them, or maybe that they won't treat them good enough, or maybe they will step in on their boundaries, or certain things like that, right? Those are obviously just a few examples, right? But what you must understand is if you're able to properly vet, right? If you're able to observe a less than desirable state that somebody's in, right? If you're able to observe, more importantly, the good things within certain people that you would want to surround yourself with, then you can avoid yourself from some a few of these problems, right? Like I said, I'm not saying my relationship is perfect. By no means is it perfect, right? But what I will say though is, by me being a good observer, by me applying the knowledge that I've acquired through the observation of other people and their experiences, I will avoid myself from a lot of problems that most people have. And that is exactly what you can do within any situation that you're in right now. You can avoid yourself from having certain problems just by being an observer and not putting yourself in a position that most people put themselves in. Some people have a hard life, but most people make life hard.